Hi everybody, Michael here. Today I want to ask, would Jesus vote left wing or right wing in politics? So let's go. Okay, so I'll do this video because I've just seen one YouTuber talking about a female Christian YouTuber who was speaking out against a lot of her MAGA friends who voted for Donald Trump. And this female Christian was saying how, how can the MAGA people be Christian? They're ignoring Jesus' teachings of welcoming the foreigner, having compassion, giving to the poor, and all this stuff. And the problem with this whole situation is, and my problem with the Bible and Jesus' teachings in general, is that anybody can script a narrative out of Jesus' teachings to suit their own agenda. And because she's a liberal, she shapes the Bible that, yes, we should have open borders, welcome the foreigner. It's all about love and compassion. Jesus told us to love everybody. And in fairness, that is somewhat true. But what this lady failed to do is point out all the opposite ways of some of the stuff that Jesus said. There was one quote that Jesus said, I have only come for the house of Israel, for the Jews. So that's very excluding of Jesus. And even if you look at the concept of heaven and hell, God himself has borders on heaven that separates the good from the evil according to their theology. Remember, I'm not a Christian, so this is not my theology. But if you just look at these sort of liberal women and men, they'd be in heaven complaining to God, saying, oh, this is not very fair. This is not very compassionate and loving. You need to open the borders and let all the people from hell into heaven. And ironically, as she is a Christian, from her point of view, she would be like Satan, because God's got his plan, he's got his borders that separates the good from the bad. But she would be going, oh no, God, you need to be more loving and compassion, which sounds like the Christian version of Satan, because Satan thought he was smarter than God, and therefore God had to cast Satan down out of heaven because his rebellion. And this is essentially what this woman is saying, that she believes that she is smarter than God because she be in heaven going, we need to open the borders. How dare you have a border wall around heaven? And all of this, feed the poor and let them in and give them benefits and all that stuff. Yeah, you can make that argument again of Jesus saying, to the rich ruler, give all your money to the poor. And obviously there is truth in that. But also the Bible also says that those who do not work shall not eat. So the Bible, basically, you could make an argument that God and Jesus doesn't want to help the lazy. So there is nuance to it. And I think if you're like me and you look at things from a neutral point of view, you can come to a sensible middle way rather than having to pick any extreme. And that, yes, we should have love and compassion and we should love our neighbours. But that doesn't mean that countries should have open borders and you let in murderers and rapists into your country. It's absolute stupidity. So there is a middle ground. And that, yes, we should look after the poor. And the people who need food should be given food. The people who need shelter should be given shelter, if at all possible. But it doesn't mean that the working class people should be working their asses off and their tax money being given to a load of people coming over here claiming a load of benefits. And even natives claiming a load of benefits. And to conclude with my video, I see this a lot of the time of sort of leftist Christians, or even people in general will say, oh, Christians, you're supposed to be about love and compassion and all of this stuff. But to me, they come across as incredibly naive, and it's more about their own self-righteous rather than doing what's right. And they don't look at the other side. For example, they're saying like, oh, where's the compassion? We need to let people in and look after them and take care of them. But then when we find out that in my country, for example, the United Kingdom, we've had hundreds of thousands of girls who have been sexually assaulted. And we've had so many problems of widows taking pictures of young girls outside schools and all these problems that we have. Where's the compassion for the young girls who've been assaulted? They don't have any compassion for them. They're told, oh, shut up, or they just ignore it. They completely ignore what's going on. So they don't care about what's right, and they don't have compassion for people and empathy for other people. They're just self-righteous and they want to seem like they're a good person. Whereas I can have compassion and look at the bigger picture. Yes, if people are poor and they need food, absolutely, I will try to help them. If there are people who are fleeing bad circumstances from countries, then yes, I would look at, can we help them? What's the best way to help them? But I also will have compassion for the native citizens of a country and say, are we going to be putting them in danger? What's going on with all these young girls getting sexually assaulted? We can't allow this. We need to have compassion for them. And you'll look at the big picture and come to a sensible conclusion that combines the feminine compassion with the masculine logical strength. You need to have a middle ground of both, not just the feminine, stupid, emotional argument, and not just the cruel, pure, masculine, logical argument. You know, there is a central ground, the wise people who can combine both. And that's what Jesus probably was. He combined both. He wasn't just all a hippie Jesus, but obviously he wasn't also just a cruel Jesus. You know, he was a proud Jew who came for the Jewish people. He even said, I have only come for the house of Israel. But he taught to have love and compassion for non-Jews. So he had the perfect middle ground. Whereas what probably happened was the Jews of the time may have not liked the non-Jews, whereas Jesus taught to love the non-Jews. And that's basically the main theme of the Abrahamic faiths, is that, you know, you look after your own. You know, the Christians, the Muslims, the Jews, they have their own identity, and that's all they care about, really. But in reality, as Jesus said, you can care about your tribe, but also look out for other people as well, and don't persecute them unnecessarily, and try to make friends with them if possible. But I believe if you have evil people coming to kill you, such as radical Muslims or radical communists, then they need to be fought without a shadow of a doubt. And that you should not turn the other cheek to people who abuse children or people who want to turn your country into a third world hellhole. Okay, so that's my point on this subject, just combining the spiritual and the political, and that all you need to do, I believe, is people need just a sensible middle way that combines the masculine and the feminine, and that's the ultimate wisdom. And you need compassion, but you also need logic and strength. Okay, so that's the point of my video today. Like the video if you like it. Comment below if you have any comments, if you agree, if you disagree. Subscribe if you're new, and God bless everybody. Goodbye.